close your eyes. Before the day began, there was a moment when the house was awake, but the world was not. No bells, no traffic, no voices yet. Just breath in the dark. The kind of quiet that makes you listen. A single kitchen light waiting downstairs. Not calling you, just there. The kettle has not spoken yet. Neither has the radio. Time is still folded up, like a blanket. The floorboards remember your weight. The house knows you are here. Nothing to do. Nowhere to be. Only this. Stay here. School mornings. In 1970s, Britain began before daylight learned its way into the streets. The hour was early but never dramatic. An ordinary weekday, repeating itself without comment. Outside, the sky held its color, undecided. Streetlights still burned, not ready to give up. Inside, the house already knew what kind of morning it would be. Radiators were cold, windows were opaque with night. The quiet was practical. Nothing special was happening, which is why it mattered. This was how most days began. Somewhere, a distant lorry sighed on an empty road. A dog barked once, then thought better of it. The world was not awake. It was only turning over, and you were already being gathered into it. Upstairs, the bedroom was colder than the hallway, cold enough to wake you before the clock did. You stayed still at first, measuring the air, learning how much movement it would allow. Breath came out pale if you waited. A quiet test. The sheets were heavy and held what warmth they could. Wool scratched but stayed loyal. You dressed quickly, not for style, for protection. Shirts pulled on under blankets. Arms finding sleeves before courage ran out. Trousers stiff from drying the day before. Fabric remembering the cold. Jumpers that smelled faintly of smoke from the fire below. Not unpleasant, just familiar. You learned early where to linger and where not to. Which corners kept warmth, which didn't forgive. The floorboards punished bare feet. They always had. You stepped where yesterday's rug lay, even if it was crooked. You put weight down softly so the boards would not complain. A house had its own noises in the morning. A creak could wake someone. A creak could cost you time. You moved with the careful speed of someone trying not to lose heat. Not rushed, just exact. Cold taught strategy before school ever did. Even your hands learned it. Fingers pressed into sleeves. Palms rubbed together once, then again. The body remembering every day that warmth was earned. You listened for the house as well, a pipe ticking as it cooled, a distant kettle lid placed down. Footsteps, careful, so they would not wake the whole street. Adults thought children slept through it. They didn't. Downstairs, the kitchen was already awake. Gas clicked, then settled into a steady sound. A flame appeared and stayed. Reliable. The room was small but dependable. Wallpaper worn thin near the table. Corners dark even when the light was on. The air smelled of tea and yesterday's washing up. Kettles did not whistle politely. They rattled. They announced themselves. Cups with saucers waited, slightly mismatched. A spoon tapped porcelain once. Milk poured slowly. Toast waited by the grill, edges threatening to burn if you forgot it. Sometimes porridge, thick and patient. A spoon standing upright for a moment before falling. Sometimes Weetabix, softening too fast if you lingered. The table carried yesterday's marks. Crumbs. A ring from a mug. A faint line where homework had been pressed too hard. Nothing was cleared for show. This room was used, not presented. It was the warmest room in the house. Everything passed through it. Morning lived here. If the kitchen held, the day could begin. If it didn't, nothing else quite worked. Condensation gathered on the window and slid down in slow lines. The glass felt colder than it looked. Someone opened the back door for a second, just to check the milk. Cold entered, then was shut out again. Your father had been up longer than you realized. You could tell by his shoes. By the way his coat waited near the door. He didn't make a performance of it. He just existed in the corner of the morning, checking the lock, glancing at the clock, looking at nothing in particular while thinking of everything. Your mother moved without hurry. She knew the order of things. She always did. Lunch prepared, sandwiches wrapped tight so they would not go soggy. A biscuit slipped in, if there was one. Buttons checked, collars straightened with a thumb, scarves folded, then unfolded, then folded again. Silence was practical, not empty. They didn't talk about the cold. They worked around it. Hands knew what to do. A tap turned off properly. A mug rinsed and set down ready for later. A school tie found and smoothed. They carried the morning so you didn't have to. You felt that without naming it. It filled the spaces between sounds. It made the room steady. And when you left, some of that steadiness went with you. Only later did you realize what it cost, how early they started, how often they did it, how rarely they said anything about it. Clothes waited near the fire, not close enough to burn, close enough to matter. Socks drying from the night before, turned once, then again. The smell of warm wool, a small comfort that never lasted long. Shoes warmed just enough to take the edge off. Laces loosened in advance. Tongues pulled up so you could slip your foot in quickly. The uniform was not a costume. It was armor. You learned what to put on first, what to keep until the last moment. The house taught timing, bags packed and repacked, books checked, pencils sharpened with a blade if the sharpener jammed. A ruler slid in, then out, then back again. Nothing forgotten, even if it felt like it might be. Time didn't rush you. It never had. It moved at the same pace every day. You learned how long each thing took, how long to stand near the fire, how much warmth you could borrow before leaving, how to be ready without being loud. Mornings rewarded quiet efficiency. There was a rhythm to it. Fast hands, soft feet, a mind already counting the minutes without panic. Your lunch went into the bag like something fragile, not because it was precious, because it had to last. You checked it once, then stopped checking. Checking didn't change anything. The front door opened carefully, pulled shut just as gently. Cold rushed in, impatient. It filled the hallway at once. A draft found the back of your neck. The street was still dim, pavements dark with frost. Cars wore a thin white skin. The air tasted clean and sharp. Other children appeared from other houses, from identical doors, from windows breathing the same air. You recognized them by shape before you saw their faces. Hats pulled down, gloves that never quite matched, socks that slid inside shoes. No greetings yet, no voices raised, just movement, footsteps, breath, scarves pulled tight, breath trapped in wool, bags adjusted on shoulders. A couple of boys ran, then slowed, as if running was wasteful. Someone kicked at ice until it broke. Someone else laughed once, then stopped. The world began to make noise. Not much. Enough to remind you that the day had started. Enough to move you forward. The house behind you went quiet again. It would hold its warmth for whoever stayed. At the corner, you waited. A bus appeared like a slow promise. Windows fogged from other breaths. Coins counted in a palm, then hidden. The day gathering people up. Only later did you understand how much had been arranged, how little of it you were asked to notice, how many small decisions were made before you woke. A light switched on at the right time, a cup warmed, a door checked, a scarf found. The mornings worked because someone held them together, quietly, without asking to be thanked, without naming the effort. They did not call it sacrifice, they called it Tuesday. What felt simple had been made that way. That was the gift. Not comfort, not ease, reliability. A world that started on time, again and again. And the older you got, the more you noticed the seams. The way adults kept their tiredness folded up. The way they spoke less so you could speak more. The way they absorbed the cold and the worry and the money talk, so the only thing you had to carry was your bag. That is why it stays with you. Not the lessons, not the timetable. The feeling of being supported from behind. An unseen hand on the small of your back. These mornings return when life feels crowded, when choice presses too close. Not as images, but as weight and temperature, as posture, as breath, the sound of a kettle, the pause before leaving. They stay because they were contained. One house, one routine, one steady start. Nothing extra, nothing missing. Not because it was better, but because it was held, because it had edges, because it was enough. And when the modern day feels loud and open and endless, your body remembers a smaller world that could be trusted. For a moment, that is all you need. Not a speech, not nostalgia, just a remembered boundary, a beginning that didn't ask you to choose. It simply started, and you started with it.